Kia ora, Ben. Good morning. Good morning. It's
Good
a
morning.
huge pleasure to welcome Ben Aaronovitch to our virtual Wellington. Thanks so much for agreeing to doing this for us.
It's all right.
For anybody who's not familiar with Ben's work, I'll give you a quick summary. Ben is the author of the internationally best-selling Rivers of London series of novels, graphic novels, and soon-to-be TV series, I believe, with Simon Pegg. Possibly. And if that's not enough, Ben has also written 2 Doctor Who serials. They're fabulous and much underrated. Remembrance of the Daleks.
Yes, that was only 50 years ago.
Only 50 years ago, good grief. And also Battlefield, which was the last television appearance of the Brigadier, if I remember correctly.
Didn't they bring him in for the New Who at some point? I'm fairly certain I saw him at some point.
I think he might have just popped up. I know it's the last one you did a big bit on.
Yeah.
Also done spin-offs for Doctor Who and Blake 7. Regular writer on Jupiter Moon, which is the big Sky B.
You have no idea what that is, do you?
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
It was. I did watch some of it. It was kind of soap, wasn't it? It's low budget soap.
It was the cheapest thing I have. I mean, I worked on Doctor Who, but it was cheaper than Doctor Who, which is like something.
Yeah. So without any further preamble from me, I'm going to get straight in. We sourced all the questions from library users. So these are questions directly from people in Wellington. So our first question comes from Linda. And Linda has 2 questions. Who does the music between the chapters on the audiobooks? She really loves it. And how did you pick who was going to do that?
I didn't pick it. The music was written specially.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know by who. Paul Stark, who is the audio maestro, who does all the audios. I mean, he knows. And I think it's the production guy did it. I mean, you know, I they didn't tell me they were going to do it. I was just sitting there listening to Moon Over Soho, and suddenly it started. Ooh, that's classy. And then they got bored with it and they took it off, and then everyone went, "We want it back!" So I said, "You have to put it back." Everyone's moaning. They're not going to stop moaning until we get it back.
Cool.
So, I mean, and the reason why it's jazzy is because it was introduced in Moon Over Soho, which is a very jazzy story, and so therefore it's jazzy. I mean, if they'd done it in like another one, it would have been, I don't know, what the hell it would have been if they'd done it in something else, but there you go.
Linda had a second question, and she's very curious about how you come up with the idea for the vestigia. How do you decide how the vestigia is going to be for each character?
Well, characters don't have vestigia. I mean, you got to get. There's 2 different concepts. There's the signari, which is what happens, the distinctive signature that someone has when they do magic, and then there's vestigia or vestigium. I can never remember which one is the plural and which one is the singular, because it's Latin. I came up with the idea for vestigium because I needed my characters to be able to know when magic was being done, and so therefore I had to come up with a reason, something you could sense. And I had to think about, well, what's it like? It can't be too obvious, otherwise everyone would be going around. But because of the way the magic system is devised, it can't be something that only specially talented people can feel. So it can't be special snowflake magic. So it had to be something that you have to be trained to spot, because it's actually merges into the everyday background experience of our lives. So a lot of people are probably walking around thinking they got tinnitus, but it's actually vestigia. You know, it's that kind of thing. And you know, everyone's done it. You must have walked into a room just like a random kind of images in your head, and you think, oh, random images in my head, or you think it's a memory associated with a smell or something, and actually that probably is, but sometimes it might be vestigia, and that's the basic. And then you have to learn how to spot it, so you need someone to teach you what it is when it is really happening and when it isn't really happening.
Cool, thanks for that.
And it's all basically, I need magic, quick, magic. When you're writing, you're frequently just going, I'll have that, quick, put that in, and then you're stuck with it. So there you go.
Cool. I've got next questions from someone called Stephen. He wants to know if the stories that are in the graphic novels will be done as a collection of short stories.
No, because the whole point of the graphic novels is that they were written as graphic novels, and I did them because I wanted to do some comics. I mean, I always liked comics, and I wanted, and I could use. And the idea was that we would do things that you can't do in short stories and novels. You would do kind of like the way graphic novels have a completely different language, different media, and so therefore you can do things in it that you can't do in a short story or a novel. And so therefore, really, a short story or a graphic novel would be kind of like a weirdly like those terrible novelizations where they just used to take the scripts and add she said, he said at the end of the
Yeah.
dialogue. I don't think so, because it would be either you would have to do it up to the standard of the novels and the books, which is not something I want to spend time doing, because it would be going backwards over stuff I've already done, or it would have to be done in that kind of very perfunctory way, which I'm not very happy with the idea
Yeah.
of doing. You don't miss anything if you don't read the graphic novels. There's no, people get worried that they're missing canon vital stuff. Canon vital stuff doesn't happen in it. They're for fun. The graphic novels are for fun.
So our next question's from someone called Joanne, and she wants to ask, what's your favorite river and why?
My favorite river, as in like a real river, like difficult. I go. My favorite river is the Thames, because she's been good to me. So I'm going to go with the Thames. As personality-wise in the books, I think, oh God, it would be a toss-up between Lady Ty, I think, and Lady Ty and the Lug. I think
And the Lug.
And the Lug. Those are my two. Those are my two. Like Lady Ty, because she's just such a force of nature, literally, and the Lug, because I was so pleased with myself when I came up with that idea.
So Joanne's got some more questions. She said, where did you learn about the local deities and legends for the London area? I guess that's kind of like, how do you do your research question?
Yeah, research in London is, you go into an area of London, you go to the local research library or something, or you start reading up on it, you just drown in stuff. So, and also I make quite a lot of it up.
Oh, right.
It's the magic stuff I make up. Like the local deities and the river spirits are nearly all made up. I mean, the fact that there was always thought to be a Father Thames is, that's a famous, he's a famous river god. But, people say, where did you get the idea for river gods? River gods existed before any other gods, really. They're, if you look back, everyone has river gods. Everyone has river spirits. It's not until you get the big imperial kind of monotheistic religion start stamping out these beliefs that people stop believing in. And if you think about the role rivers play in early man and early people's kind of like existence, you can see why you would believe there is a spirit. They're dependable, but sometimes they're not dependable. They have their moods. They have their, kind of thing. They're like people. You're going to give them a personality. They're important to you, and you're going to give them a personality. And occasionally, you got to throw your enemies' heads in there just to be on the, keep them sweet.
Do you have a favourite independent bookshop?
Do I have a favourite independent? I've met. Well, I would have to say it was probably the Owl Bookshop in Kentish Town, which is the independent bookshop I spent most of my life in. Before the age of 20. Independent, but I've run into so many.
Yes,
I did a specific independent bookshop tour at one point, and I ran into so many fantastic bookshops all over the country, all over the UK, that it's really hard to say. I mean, there's I've forgotten the name of it now. That's terrible. I forgot the name. There's one in Bristol. It's like a submarine. It's like a long, thin passage lined with books. I love that one. And there was this great one in the Borders that I went to, and we did this event, and it was basically it's like 1.5. It was like someone's living room and their back extension that's been turned into a bookshop, and we basically all sat on the floor in the back extension and had this kind of event. It was just like the local clientele kept going round, and it was just like, and with sandwiches and coffee, which is always a good way to my heart, would be sandwiches and coffee, and that was just really nice. And compared to sort of like some of the bigger events that I do, when I'm talking like 150 people, which is fun in its own right. But there I was in this back room of this shop that really was about the size of my flat, and my flat's not that big, so.
Thank you. Now this is a very local question. Have you seen Wellington Paranormal?
No, I haven't, and it's on my list. You see, you've got to be careful when you watch this, because if you watch it, at the moment, if I accidentally kind of do something that's on Wellington Paranormal, I can go, I never saw it. You can't blame me. I didn't steal it. But if I watch it and I nick something, then everyone will know that I nicked it.
And go.
Someone had the same idea. It's like, oh, what if the cops did magic? It's like that's basically the format behind Rivers of London. Is like cops that do magic. Yay!
Yay! Thank you. So the next question is from one of our users called Andrew, and Andrew's got a couple of Doctor Who orientated questions.
There's always one.
Yeah, so he said, with regards to remembrance of the Daleks, with the technological limitations of the time, were you happy with the final result?
You're never happy with the final result because in your head it's beautiful and shot on 35mm and industrial light and magic does the effects, and then you're doing it on a Doctor Who budget which was less than the average drama budget, I might add. It's like, I think we did very well.
Yep.
I'm not that. I mean, it's my first script, so I'm not actually that happy with the script in places. So it's not so much the limitations of the production. I mean, there are some fantastic things that they just went over and about, blowing up bits of central London, which you weren't supposed to do. This was the 80s, remember? So it was like, there was still terrorist bombs going off, and the anti-terrorist squad was scrambled because we made such a big noise down by Waterloo train station and stuff like that. And I had a photograph, which I can't find, of a bunch of Daleks across the road. You can see the fire engines have just like come roaring around the corners. Just like a picture, and the special effects people did a good job on that one.
Yeah, I watched it again recently and I really enjoyed it, actually. Just
yeah, I mean, it's very, very 80s. You watch it go, oh my god, this is so 80s. But it was done in the 80s, so duh.
So got a big pile of anonymous questions. So I think a general one, what kind of science fiction do you like personally, to either read or watch?
I'm very boring in my reading now. I've stopped being like a cutting edge science fiction reading person. I've become. I read lots of like comforting space opera because I like spaceships. That's what I want. I don't like this complicated stuff anymore. And I've never been a big fan of transhumanism, and I'm an AI skeptic, and so therefore, I like my books to have people with rockets, basically.
Cool.
And I have read some of the cutting edge, but I don't know. You just get fossilized. It's like you're tasting music. You just get past a certain point, and you just go, "Oh, I don't like this. It's all noise. I tell you." And so yeah, very conventional my stuff. Lewis McMaster Bujold, people like that, CJ Cherry. I mean, I do like people like N.K. Jemisin and some of the newer people, Nella Hopkinson. But and there's quite a lot of like up and coming fantasy writers actually who are kind of like doing very interesting stuff. But I've never really thought about it in those terms. I like a lot of science fiction bods. I kind of graduated about the age of 9. I found science fiction, and then I just read everything for like 5 years at a rate of about 3 books a day. I would read everything. You go completely indiscriminately, with no sense of like what was good and or wholesome, really, since we're talking about the 50s and 60s, and you just and that was that. So my tastes were kind of fall back then. They're very bad tastes. I still occasionally read David Eddings for fun, so I can tell you, indicate my level of kind of commitment to good writing. Anyway. But a good story. It's like in non-literature, as I like to think of the what they call commercial fiction, which is everything that actually makes money. The books that people want to buy, if you want to put it that way, right? Story will always trump style every single time in terms of commercial success. So that's why people like things like the Da Vinci Code will sell really well despite the terrible prose, because its story will trump. That's why lots of writers have had successful careers with quite average or not very good prose because they tell really good stories. Really good storytelling will trump. If you get hooked in by the story, you will put up with burly policemen and adjectivitis and all the other things that writing can be prone to, as long as it has a good story. So I've forgotten what the question was.
Could you go back, like very introduction?
Rocket-shaped rockets.
That Simon Pegg's production company had snapped up the film rights for Rivers of London.
The film rights. I love that. It's like they were going to oh, you're a down, give it to us. No. Simon Pegg, Stolen Pictures. They have brought them. And so I met them, which was nice because famous people. You don't meet famous people very often when you're a writer. And and they're keen to do it. I mean, if anyone can do it, but it's a bastard of a show to make because it's expensive. It's complex. It's filmed in central London, which is expensive. So it just keeps getting more and more expensive. And it's not the sort of thing that necessarily appeals to Americans because it's not Downton Abbey England or Midsummer Murders England. It's sort of real London. So as opposed to imaginary London, which is weird when you think about it, that it's real London. So it's difficult. So getting finance and stuff becomes quite a bit of a problem because it's a really expensive show. You have to get basically American money and but anyway, but actually I think I've signed an NDA agreement, so I probably shouldn't talk about it at all. Right. But I'm not going to talk about it because I actually haven't I've got to reread my NDA before I start because I'd forgotten I'd done that, and they said my agent said, you signed an NDA, check the bloody writing. You're not allowed to slag off the company. They're wonderful people, lovely people.
Hypothetically, if it does get off the ground and with your screenwriting experience, would you be keen to be involved with it? And that
I am involved. I have a very high level of involvement. My contract does actually specify a very high level of involvement beyond the normal one where they have the ignorable writer. I'm not an ignorable writer. Much involvement I actually have in the day-to-day writing will depend on how much time I have. I would like to do some writing, but it's a very time-consuming process. Even scripts, especially these days, where they like to rewrite everything 9 or 10 times. It's not like the old days when you just went bish bash bush. Bish bash bush.
Have you seen much of the Jodie Whittaker Doctor Who's, and have you been approached to write any stories for it?
No, I don't think they're ever going to approach me to write Doctor Who. I've been asked this question since New Who came back, so. I would, but I don't think, I say I would. I have a standard response. I go, well, I feel that writing for Doctor Who now would be a step backwards. It's moved on. I've moved on. But the truth is that if, I would have said yes by about the second sentence of the phone call, right? So, but I seriously suspect, I think I find it quite difficult to write for Doctor Who now because it's a very different kind of beast than it was when I was writing for it. And it's much more. I don't know. It's very hard to explain. It's just I'm just old and it's young, and I think I just wouldn't fit in as well as I might. I don't think I'm not even sure I'd do a good job. So, in terms of modern stuff, I think I'd do a good job, but you'd all be watching it going, "Oh, this feels very 90s."
Do you find there's a big difference between the way you think about the graphic novels and writing the graphic novels and the novels themselves? Do you go different mindset, or is it the same?
It's a completely different process. It's a completely different process because they're completely different mediums. So with the graphic novels, you're talking about usually four episodes, 4 issues making up a whole thing. They've got a certain rhythm to them. They've got a certain pattern. You've got to think about the work. You've got to think about your artist. You've got to think about the style the artist is going to draw them in. And so therefore, it's a completely different process. The characters stay the same, I noticed, and the dialogue stays the same. But dialogue is really not the most important bit of a graphic novel. I mean, the clue there being in the word graphic. So I just wrote something for Monday, which is the next one after The Fair and the Furious. And I found myself, and I wrote it, and I pretty much tried to write it with no dialogue, and I'm never doing that again, by the way. I'm never doing a thing with no dialogue or writing whatsoever. I just thought, as for fun, it just seemed to suit the kind of the moment. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't say to myself, I shall write something with no dialogue. It just seemed to suit my. But my God, it's hard work because you have to make sure the story is told entirely through pictures, and that's actually a lot of work. So,
you described the Rivers of London as kind of Sweeney Meeks Harry Potter, or it's been described that way. Would you agree with that description, or how would you describe it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Harry Potter, there's always like, before Harry Potter came along, they would have said Gandalf. And before Gandalf came along, they would have said Merlin. It's whatever wizard is kind of currently kind of in vogue. They put it. I mean, Harry Potter is slightly more accurate because Harry Potter is an urban fantasy. And so therefore, it's a contemporary fantasy. But no, not really, because it's... Harry Potter is a completely different world. It's I'm sure I'm sure J.K. Rowling would be just as horrified at the idea of my books being described as Harry Potter joins the police as I am, vice versa, because it's not because it's we don't like each other's work, but because for us we're very tied up in it and we know all the differences because it's our creation, and so then we're like, no, that doesn't work because and this system is incompatible. It's like when they say who would beat who in a fight, you have to say, well, under which system would who beat what in a fight? And in any case, Nightingale wouldn't go toe to toe with Dumbledore. He'd shoot him from 2 miles away with a sniper rifle.
So I've only got a couple more questions, Ben. One is, do you have a favourite period of Doctor Who? So somebody obviously likes the Doctor Who questions.
Mine is late Pertwee, early. Oh God, that's terrible.
Tom Baker.
His name. Yeah, early Tom Baker. That's my period of Doctor Who. So I'm always, like the things like the slugs in the mines and things like that. It's, hiding drashings and hiding behind things and all that kind of stuff. And Tom Baker. And then there's the period that I wrote for, which obviously Sylvester is like, I'm very fond of Sylvester. So in terms of classic Who, that's my periods. Those are my two periods. I actually like Tennant and what's her name? The comedian. Oh God, I always forget her name. I thought they were really good. I liked that combination a lot in terms of characterization. But I don't know. Ask me in about 10 years. I'm enjoying Jodie Whittaker, so I like this kind of very fresh kind of thing that Jodie Whittaker's bringing to the party.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah. One last question. What's your view on printed books versus ebooks, audiobooks, and stuff like that in terms of accessibility for your audiences?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, like, obviously, if you're visually impaired, then an audiobook is better than a printed book. But I mean, in terms of accessibility, I usually end up buying everything 3 times now. I tend to buy them as printed books because I like to have a physical copy. I get them as ebooks and I buy them as audiobooks. So there are a lot of authors who are making tons of money out of me now because of that. I'm just going,
thanks very much, man.
So, I mean, from an author's point of view, I'm always going to have like physical books. I'm a physical book kind of person. I like an ebook because then you don't have to carry 8 or 9 physical books on holiday, which was always a problem. And I like audio because you can do exercise and you can go out and walk, or if you have to go somewhere like a long walk or something, you can listen to a book while you're walking along. So I'm in favour of everything.
Cool, good. So that's all the questions we have for you, Ben. I'll do. That's all time. Thank you very much for everybody who's sending questions, and especially Ben. A huge thank you for doing this. Really enjoyed it. A huge fan of the book itself, and perhaps at some point we might even see you in wonderful Wellington. You'd be very welcome indeed here.
Yeah, my thing is that I went to Australia once, right? And I'm not doing that journey again unless I stay for at least 3 months. So yeah, if I come down your way again, I'm definitely coming to New Zealand because I'm not coming all that way and then staying 2 weeks and going all that way back. That was a horrible flight. I'm never doing that. Oh, I've always had an interest in New Zealand. When I was in primary school. For a school project, I made a 2.5 meter long map of New Zealand out of papier-mâché.